Hey there, everybody. What's going on? Hope everybody's having a good day. Appreciate everybody who's tapping into the video. I just wanted to start this one by saying thank you to everybody who's supporting my most recent videos and shorts and anything like that. Any new subscribers, anyone who's liked and or comment and discussed in the comments below. As these videos are just my opinions being stated, and I hope you do feel free to comment yours down below in the comment section. So if you did watch my last video, it was super important as I explained the reasonings of what makes the masterpiece of The Last of Us, or what makes The Last of Us a masterpiece. I think the reason I'm making this video here separately to what makes The Last of Us Part 2 a masterpiece, which I do believe it is, and I have believed since launch, I think it's more so the decision rather than the execution that doesn't make it a part of that equation. That doesn't make this fit into the video. The execution of Joel's death is done extremely well. Just the decision to kill him off so soon, so brutally, and so quick, and then have you playing as this character, that decision is just something that is still something interesting to me. I do like having, learning the reasonings and getting to understand Abby. I like that as a creative aspect, but as a fan of The Last of Us, and if you watch my last video, you know what I believe makes The Last of Us a masterpiece. And the part 1 is Joel's story. It is Joel. So the fact that we go into part 2 after a 7-year wait and he kind of just gets ripped from us like that, that's kind of why I am yet to put it in that equation. But it is, as a creative decision, it's ballsy, it's bold. I know most people are still conflicted 5 years later, and I don't want to sound too much like the critical thinker, whatever his name is. Anywho, don't want to sound like him, but something about this show is flat. Something about it is flat, and that is kind of why I made my first video and what makes The Last of Us a masterpiece, and why I exactly titled that. I didn't speak on the first season in that video of the adaptation too much. I feel I spoke on the differences between the two without stating the obvious. This happens in the show, this happens in the game. I don't want to sound like that specific crowd. Huge fan of the series, huge fan of the series in general. The Last of Us is a great, brutal world. But Neil Druckmann not having any faith in his powerful story is actually disheartening to see be played out on TV. Main reason why I did not dive into the changes for the first season is the creative team had some decent excuses for making them. So we didn't really have too many gripes or anything like that, but there were some changes that we did not like from the game. And like I said, I think the game's a masterpiece. Obviously, you're gonna have to change some things up for TV, but to this extent, it's crazy. So the second season already has made many changes from the game, and I'm just starting to wonder, with all the changes made to the first season and with how poorly this game was received at launch, I wonder if the pressure that Druckmann faced a few years ago at the release of the second game and the decisions that he decided to put in that game are actually beginning to creep back up, because he does not want to relive that on a grander scale. Like I said, 7 years wait from part 1 to part 2. I think 2.5 hours, 2 hours of gameplay, Joel's done. But that is exactly what makes Joel's death powerful. When you see Joel again for the first time in that flashback, you start to tear up again. Joel is Tommy's older brother, his protector. And at the end of the day, Tommy could not protect Joel. There were multiple signs of Tommy already softening up in the first game when we see Joel still super hardened and Tommy has found a wife. Left Boston, got away from Joel, softened it up. 6 years later, 5 years later, when Joel and Ellie, they have a parental relationship, so Joel starts to soften up. Alright, so by the time part 2 happens, Tommy's already fully into civilian life, and Joel has had 5 or so years to ease into it. I find it such a silly complaint that these hardened survivors, these two brutal men that survived for so long and this hard world, would just quote unquote give up their names, when one, Joel is skeptical. If you actually play the game and you pay attention to Joel is skeptical the entire time he gets to the house. He saves Abby. They run for their lives, but by the time he's in the house, I believe it's Mel who asks something about the horses or if they're okay, and Joel gives a very short answer, and Tommy's the one who's conversating. Hey, how long you guys been up here? Oh, wow, you guys should come back and regroup. Joel's not saying anything. He says, hey, I'm Tommy, and this is my brother. Waiting for Joel to answer, and Joel does. Joel, there is no reason at all that you guys believe Tommy hasn't ran into multiple survivors, people trying to survive in this world, decent people, on the outskirts of Jackson, and has brought them back to Jackson, and they were decent people. There's no, like, the fact that you guys believe that Tommy is just this hardened guy who's still this trying to survive and 20, no, these aren't these men anymore. So that's one. It's actually very realistic for Tommy to give it up, and Tommy accidentally does it. That's why it's huge that Tommy's there. And two, this is fucking fiction. A lot of changes made to the show are so mind-boggling to me because this isn't real. And you could say it's not real. Why does it matter the changes? The excuses that were made for the first season were for realism's sake. But this isn't real. Joel isn't real. Ellie isn't real. This infection isn't made. It's all made up. You know what I mean? So things happen in fiction for the story's sake. Tell me why Harry Potter didn't die when Voldemort tried to kill him. His mom put a fucking spell on him to protect him. Fiction. It happened. How did she get that in time? Brother, it happened. Why didn't Sam kill Smeagol at the top of Mount Doom when Smeagol was literally trying to kill them and take the ring and stop them? Brother, the ring needed to get destroyed by Smeagol, by him jumping. If Sam just accidentally stabbed him instead of slicing his stomach and just kept stabbing, brother, the ring wouldn't. It's fiction. Why in the hell are there a planet of 7 billion people that has now gone to shit because of this infection? Why is the one person who's immune in America, a little girl, runs into the man who lost his daughter, a little girl, and who's willing to go on a cross country? Okay, bye bad. I genuinely think the game versions of Joel and Ellie, Ashley and Troy, are superior, mainly because they just get the characters and they have a better chemistry together. Changing Tommy to not even be there for his brother's murder and instead lead a pointless attack where we forgo the logic of the hive mind and the fighter, quote unquote, that Tommy is for plot's sake. Joel is not a good guy. Tess tells it to them straight up when she's dying. We are not good people, Joel. He needs to do this last task, aka the first game, for Tess, for their relationship. It's not to try and redeem themselves, not trying to get the last good deed for the world. That is not who Joel is. Joel had to finish his end of the deal for Tess. He's a hardened man who got his humanity ripped from him years ago. He did what he needed to do for 20 years to survive, okay? When Joel gets his knee blown off and he sees his brother get beaten unconscious, Joel knows exactly what time it is. He knows exactly what's caught up to him. Maybe not specific names and or groups, but he knows that he isn't a good person. Joel knows he's done numerous bad things to numerous people. Hence why he doesn't even care to listen to Abby in the game. She tells him to guess who they are. He tells her, let's just save that speech and get it over with. Having Pedro Pascal in a weak ass little voice say, I saved you. It's fucking what? Having Abby compliment him saying you're actually, what the fuck? Also, some of these changes are just baffling to me. It's not explained at all in the game. It is implied, okay? The reason Abby's group is okay with Abby going as far as she does, alright, is because Abby isn't the only person who lost someone in Joel's rampage in the hospital. They all probably lost someone to Joel saving Ellie. They all see him as a monster. Exactly why Nora doesn't backtrack when Ellie catches up to her and tells her he got what he deserved to her face. Not the entirety of the group just being remorseful and crying and sad Abby's taking it too far. She's just a psychopath. She's enjoying. She's reveling. Like, what are we talking about? Do you really believe Abby's just Abby's dad and that's why or they didn't have a relationship with everybody in it? All right, don't want to sound like too much of a ranter. Sadly, I don't want to sound like that crowd. But this is where I'm going to leave it off. It's actually such a bummer that Druckmann took such creative risk and instead of doubling down on the storytelling he created and actually built on some already well-established connections and diving into something like the wiping of the Fireflies or others from the group, trauma, finding their dead loved ones like Abby did. There is a reason Tommy is the first to leave for Seattle. Ellie, the player, is following behind him in a wake of bodies that he leaves behind. See, feeling the guilt that he couldn't save his brother, nobody's safe in Seattle. Nobody with a wolf patch is safe, which is a very far cry from the Tommy that is, hey, I'm Tommy, this is my brother. He goes back into Firefly mode. It's war mode. So I just genuinely think that the brutal and quick manner in which Joel is taken from us, and yes, us, the player, resembles the cold loss that we could not yet relate to in the beginning of the first game with Sarah. We knew and played for Joel, as Joel, for a whole game. We waited years for a sequel, and we all created our own headcanons of what that sequel will be and lead up to. Neil Druckmann said F that. We all knew and cared for Joel the same level he did for Sarah, and that loss did the same thing it did for Joel for a lot of players. Turned us all cold, man. A lot of people turn on the fan base, it is what it is, but I genuinely believe that it's great and horrible. I see the show just getting kind of crazy praise, and it's to each their own. Everyone's entitled to their own opinions. I just feel some of these changes being made are just poor, and they're foregoing storytelling for the sake of spectacle. Especially a lot of these changes that are going to change major character arcs. Like, Tommy isn't that guy anymore. Seeing how they did his brother and the guilt that he feels by him just thinking these are refugees coming to Jackson. Hey, I'm Tommy, this is Joel. That is what drives him to go ape shit in Seattle. Genuinely, I just hope Dina and Ellie don't get in a little fight over who Joel liked more, since they just randomly added that relationship, or they just had to show it. I think that the creative decisions for part 2 work even better than part 1 does for TV, and truly am saddened. I'm saddened that the backlash received at launch of part 2 is now having Druckmann fear standing tall next to his own creation. A little rant. Joel's death is great. It's rough. Sucks. It's good. I think that's what makes this game a masterpiece. So that's coming soon. Sub if you're new. Let me know your thoughts below, and I'm out of here. Bye.
Joel Miller.
Why don't you say whatever speech you got rehearsed? Get this over with.
Sound like a real nigga to me.